Has anyone been checking the vibes coming out of the United Kingdom for the past little while? Because I'm starting to get a little worried about you guys across the pond.
I've left the UK. The UK is not a nice place anymore.
Public services are creaking at the seams.
Melanie has always struggled to make ends meet, but it's never been as hard as this.
It feels like over the past 2 years, I've not been able to find a single video that has anything positive to say about the socio-economic situation in Great Britain. Like, when I search up the state of the UK, instead of seeing fun geography videos, I get things like, everyone in the UK has given up. I investigated the UK. The reality is worse than you think. And how the UK is becoming a third world economy? I thought the UK was just like posh Harry Potter banking country where all the people talk funny. And you're telling me that the whole place is actually a dump? That no one wants to live there anymore? That they somehow have worse potholes than Belgium? Like, what the fuck happened? So I looked into it, and it turns out that trying to accurately explain the over a decade-long socioeconomic decline of the 6th largest economy on Earth in a time frame short enough so that I can actually get to the point of this video before you click off is probably too much to ask of an 18-year-old too lazy to read economics research papers all day. But with that said, here's what I think went down. So basically, because of reasons way too complicated to explain in a concise way, large American banks made a bunch of stupid investments into a real estate bubble, and circa 2008 the investments unraveled and kinda crashed the whole world's economy for a bit. Yeah, I'm sorry about that one. And the UK was hit especially hard, as a lot of its economy was, and still is, based on its globally focused financial sector in London, which was very exposed to Wall Street shenanigans. So the government had to spend a crap ton of money to bail out all the banks so the UK's whole economic system didn't collapse. So after that whole situation, the British folk were rightfully pissed and decided to elect the party that was not in power at the time when the economy crashed, the Conservatives, and that is when things started to go wrong. The new government decided to implement this thing called austerity. As they said, the economy had recovered and the government needed to cut back on spending to make up for all the money that was used bailing out all the banks. The problem with this was that economic output was still well below where it was before the recession, and since government spending makes up about 40% of the economy, what actually ended up happening is that the Conservatives basically kneecapped any chance of full economic recovery. What's more is that the areas in which they cut spending the most were also things that independent business growth, the other 60% of the economy, is built on. They cut funding to transport, which workers need to get to work, or healthcare, which workers need to not get sick and stay in the workforce, or education, which workers need so they know how to do their fucking job. This meant that over time, capital flowed out of the UK to other economies that were less stagnant and were actually investing in themselves, which promoted further economic stagnation, which lowered tax revenue, which led to more government spending cuts, which promoted further economic stagnation, and I think you see where this is going. Also, in the middle of this, the British decided to leave the EU, which led to business investment and trade with Europe, the people the UK naturally does the most business with, to fall off a cliff, making the whole stagnant economy cycle even worse. So after 10 years of not investing nearly enough into the country's infrastructure and social welfare, the last thing the British economy needed was the 2020s. First was the pandemic, which once again crashed the economy and also put intense pressure on the UK's hollowed out social services. So in this time of crisis, the Conservatives, who were still somehow in power, decided, okay, we learned our lesson, let's spend some money. But then instead of spending the money where it was actually needed by investing into the UK's social and physical infrastructure, they kind of just gave people vouchers to go eat out at restaurants, which, along with the rise in energy costs due to the war in Ukraine, kinda had the funny side effect of causing runaway inflation, making everyone's wages worth jack shit. But luckily, there is a very easy and simple solution to this problem. Raise taxes, cool down the inflationary economy, and finally invest in the country's hollowed out institutions. And the Conservatives just appointed this new lady, Liz Truss, to be the Prime Minister. Surely they will take the obviously correct course of action and raise taxes and get the UK finally out of its downward spiral. She cut taxes. She cut them. And this was such an obviously stupid idea that basically every investor lost confidence in the British government at once, and the economy almost crashed again. Not because of a world economic downturn, not because of a pandemic, but because of the brain-dead actions of the British government themselves. And that's basically how we got here, where British people can't find a job due to stagnant business growth, can't get good services because of stagnant public investment, and can't buy anything with their stagnant wages. And it's in this exact environment where opportunistic actors arise. Living in China, or more specifically Jason Living in China, is a YouTube channel run independently by Jason Lightfoot, a British man who has been living in China for the past 13 years. The channel's content mainly consists of vlog-style videos from within spectacular locations in China, high-tech city centers, absolutely pristine parks, giant modern buildings, and insanely beautiful rural landscapes, all the while stating how Western countries just can't even compare to China at this point. Jason touts that he is showing the real China, the one that the biased cabal of anti-China Western media outlets lies about and refuses to show, like the common myth that the world's second largest country by population with some of the largest and most housing burdened cities on earth has homelessness. Jason exposes this great lie peddled by the likes of CNN by using well-renowned investigative journalistic method of walk around park and look for homeless people.
If I was sat on this bench in the US right now, or in Europe, or in the UK, in the West somewhere, right, I would be sat next to a homeless person.
Yeah, sure. If it isn't glaringly obvious, this channel is overt Chinese propaganda directly supported and likely funded by the state. And if you refuse to believe this, then I'm sorry, but you're probably too stupid to enjoy the rest of this video. I mean, here he is literally being filmed in a vlog-style video by Chinese state-run news agency CGTN's camera crew and saying, and I quote, that
I want to say thank you to CGTN, and without them I wouldn't be able to experience opportunities like this.
And here he is once again on CGTN, Lei epically debunking the widely reported human rights abuses and detainment of China's Uyghur population into inhumane re-education camps.
I mean, this is supposed to be some kind of detention camp. Can you explain why they've got a nice little garden in the factory? I thought this is some kind of forced labor like factory. Why is there like a nice little relaxing garden to walk around?
Yeah, bet you never considered that one. Checkmate, BBC. And while most of his popular videos consist of the same format, go to some impressive spot in China, show it off, and praise the state while shitting on Western countries, mainly the US, for not being able to match the greatness of China, there is one notable exception. In Jason's second most popular vlog, he takes the propaganda war to his home country, Broken Britain. And like his vlogs in China, it is rife with cherry picking, hasty generalizations, and false dichotomies. He purposely goes to the outdated train station at Heathrow Airport to complain about how old it is in contrast to clean, modern metros in China, when there's a brand new station with the state-of-the-art metro line a few hundred feet away. He compares how much more unaffordable the price of his hotel in London is compared to hotels in China, while failing to mention that the GDP per capita of the UK is almost 4 times higher than in China. He notes how the UK stole most of the artifacts in the British Museum as an evil expansionist power, implicitly compared to famously pacifist country in the 21st century, China. And worst of all, he goes to a restaurant with $3 signs on Google and then is appalled at the price. Like, mate, there is a pub in the same station serving the same meal for half the price. If you want a cheaper meal, just go there. And I could go on and on about this video, from the jarring, inhumane way Jason points out every homeless person on the street to getting his kid to spout Chinese propaganda. But I think by trying to debunk this video, I'm missing the point. The appeal of the channel Living in China's second most popular video is ironically not China at all. It's the current state of the UK. Sure, a lot of the video is carefully curated to make Britain look extra broken, but the problems the video alludes to are real. The UK does struggle to build and invest in basic infrastructure. The UK does have an increasing homelessness issue due to a real housing crisis, and many people in the UK do find the rising cost of living increasingly unaffordable when compared to their stagnant wages. That's why this video resonates so much with people, why it is his second most popular video despite being so different from his usual content. And no matter how biased Jason is against the UK, a lot of British people genuinely feel like Britain is broken. And what frustrates me so much is that I'm kind of right there with them. Post-pandemic, it's not just the UK's vibes that feel off, it's the entirety of Western civilization. It seems like basically every wealthy democratic country at this point is dealing with the housing crisis, crashing birth rates, unsustainable levels of government debt, persistently high inflation combined with wage stagnation, and disconnected politicians who have no clue what to do about any of it and really only seem to be able to get in bed with corporations and make things worse. I feel like I was promised more than this, that my life would be better or at least on par with the one my parents lived, but now it seems like selling my soul to a corporate office job is a privilege not to be forgotten. And home ownership? I mean, forget about it. Home prices in the US state I grew up in have doubled in just the past 7 years, and that's still somehow not nearly as bad as situation in the UK. And most of all, I can't shake the scary feeling that we did this. We shot ourselves in the foot. The UK didn't have to leave the EU, but that's what the people voted for. The UK didn't have to undergo austerity, but that's what the people voted for. And despite the obvious signs that the UK was starting to decay, the British public continued to vote in the Conservatives for basically my entire lifetime since I was 4 years old. And in the background of all of this, there are countries like China and the UAE. Again, no matter how staged and cherry-picked Jason's videos are, the things he shows in them are real. The pristine, clean streets are real. The high-tech, glamorous city centers are real. The countless insane modern infrastructure projects are real. While we seem to be stuck arguing about wokeness or cancel culture, China built like 10 megacities, the world's largest high-speed rail network, and lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. There is something to be said about the fact that while China's education minister as a PhD, attended 4 different universities including Columbia, later became the president of one of said universities he attended, and won an international award for his outstanding contributions to education, science, and technology development across China. The head of the Department of Education in my country is fucking Linda McMahon. You know, of fake pro wrestling fame? Oh, and her qualifications for being the Secretary of Education at a time of unprecedented change and challenge in the field? Nothing! For fuck's sake, she can't even do basic math.
Madam Secretary, and I'm not a great mathematician, but I think you were talking about $1 trillion. I believe 1.5 billion times 10 is $15 billion. But
I think the budget cuts 1.2 billion for
Well, 1.2, that would be $12 billion, not $1 trillion.
Okay.
I really don't think that videos of modern Chinese megacities on TikTok would be so viral and compelling to young people if what we had to offer in the West was just as good, something else besides just a slow fall from grace. I mean, am I really gonna sit here as an arrogant, overly optimistic 18-year-old and say to this real British man with over a decade of life experience in both the UK and China that he's wrong? That I still believe in Western civilization and democracy? I mean, I don't even know what I believe anymore. The world is crazy now. Every time I open up the news or social media, it seems like some lifelong idea I had about how the world works gets completely upended. It feels like more insane shit has happened in the last 6 months than the past 6 years of my life. I still want to believe that the UK is a wealthy, functional country like I've been told and assumed my whole life, because if it isn't, that's kind of scary, but at this point I feel like anything's possible. Maybe all the social media doom posting is right, and the UK really is the most miserable, broken island on this planet. I mean, how the fuck would I know? I've never even been there. So I did the only thing I feel like you can at this point to find real truth in this world. I got my ass off the couch, flew to the UK, and spent 2 weeks exploring the whole country. I started up in Scotland, spending a few days in Edinburgh, then made my way all the way down the East Coast main line, stopping overnight in York before ending up in London, where I stayed for the rest of the time while taking day trips to Brighton and Oxford. Which means that yes, I did not spend the whole time in London and staring at Unk Rocks, because let's be honest, making a living in China style propaganda video just using London would be way too easy. I mean, just look at it. And consistently, no matter where I went, despite all the social media doom posting, I discovered the UK is still undoubtedly one of the greatest countries on earth. And it's definitely not because of fancy glass skyscrapers and insane modern infrastructure, like the UK doesn't also have that, but because of smaller, less flashy elements that come together to create a safe, sustainable, and wealthy country. Elements that China and even my home country of America too often lack. So here are the 7 reasons why, as I see it, Britain is not broken and is actually one of the best places to live on earth. Why, from my perspective, the British are some of the luckiest people on this planet. First of all, the UK is old, like really, really old. The country's landscape is littered with centuries-old stately castles, winding medieval streets, lively ancient markets, and imposing cathedrals. Sure, the country may seem antiquated when compared to China or even parts of America, but that's because a lot of the country was built hundreds of years ago. It's a feature, not a bug. The sturdy little houses and largely walkable organic city centers make the UK feel, as opposed to America's supersized car-oriented sprawl or China's shiny dystopian megacities, like a place that is actually built for humans. Also, unlike buildings in China, which are known for their impeccable build quality, the UK structures and institutions were clearly built carefully with the intention to last. All these old buildings and the country at large have been through a lot. Hundreds of years of wars, pandemics, and economic crises. And yet, here it all is, centuries later, still right here in front of me, being inhabited, lived in, and admired by people every day. So I have confidence that the UK can get through whatever moment it's having right now. Things have been way worse in the past. The country has survived with the same institutions for hundreds of years, and I see no reason why it can't go a few hundred more. Speaking of those institutions, controversial opinion time, but I think the UK government kind of rocks. Okay, to be clear, the people in the government.
We inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas. Then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Questionable, but the government itself is great. No matter what way you frame it, the British have one of the oldest, least corrupt, most democratic governmental systems on earth. Consistently every few years or so, tens of millions of British people participate in free and fair elections, getting to choose between a plethora of competing political parties to head their nation, which is not something they should take for granted. Just ask China. I mean, one day I got bored at the Holyrood House, so I just casually went across the street and walked around Scottish Parliament. Like, what? That is an insane level of government transparency. And also, the government provides a lot of really good services. Look, I know the NHS has a lot of problems right now, but as an American, free healthcare, like completely free? You know, I'm actually writing this while recovering from getting my wisdom teeth removed, and we had to pay an extra surprise $300 on to put some specialty pain medicine in my mouth during the surgery so I wouldn't be in agony for a week. And that was on top of the $1,500 we paid out of pocket for the surgery with my mom's health insurance, which she gets by working at a fucking hospital. The British government has also set up a lot of other really amazing things that a plethora of countries, including America, lack, like an actually livable pension for seniors, the world's most well-respected public broadcaster, free entry to museums and cultural institutions, 52 weeks of maternity leave for mothers, free university in Scotland, a large network of public housing for the poor, and 28 days of mandatory paid vacation per year. And while the British government very notably has been fumbling the bag for the past few years, through the power of democracy, it seems like the country is sorta on the right track. Speaking of which, British railways are just amazing. The UK spent most of the 19th and 20th centuries building the world's greatest train network, and unlike certain other countries, continue to invest and expand in its rail network to this day. Today, no town over 100,000 people goes without a train station at its center, and almost 60% of people in England and Wales live within a 30-minute walk of one. From trams to commuter trains, from metros to high-speed intercity rail, getting around this incredibly dense island is an absolute breeze. You can get from almost any major city in the country to London well before lunch, and even less prominent routes are well developed and rarely much slower than driving, all while enjoying some of the most beautiful architecture, stunning landscapes, and greatest engineering out there. Are the trains expensive? Oh, absolutely. But they wouldn't be able to charge that much if they weren't incredibly useful and well patronized, if they didn't allow people to see friends in different cities, take day trips to other countries, and commute across counties daily, all without the stress and financial commitment of car ownership, making the whole country feel like the dense, cohesive, interconnected little island that it is. And that is something that the British should not take for granted. Plus, it's a lot safer than driving. America is kind of a dangerous country. We have dangerously inaccessible healthcare, dangerous transportation, dangerously unhealthy food, and dangerous cities. Like, I really don't think that British people conceptualize London as some low-crime heaven, but plop it down in America and suddenly it's safer than 96 out of the top 100 largest US cities. At my own public high school, I had to go through metal detectors every day just to go to class, with an armed police officer present at all times. Also, do you know how nice it is that police officers in the UK are often just unarmed, friendly people you as a tourist are encouraged to go up to if you need anything? Police presence in the US often ends up making me feel uneasy, doubly so as someone who is gay. I mean, while I was traveling around the UK, in Seattle, one of the most progressive cities in the US, police violently tackled and arrested 23 LGBTQ protesters, and not even 3 days later, all but one were released because they did nothing fucking wrong. Look, do I as a hard-boiled, freedom-loving American think that the British government should be arresting people for saying heinous things about marginalized groups on the internet? No, but it's so nice to know that the government and the people who it answers to actually care. Wandering around the UK outside alone, I came across a feeling of safety and peacefulness that I rarely ever felt before in America, and as an LGBTQ person, that I know I would not feel in China. By contrast, I don't think I've ever felt more at home in a foreign country than in London, and that is because of the UK's diversity. At one point, this tiny little island controlled over a quarter of the globe, and while the outcomes of colonization for the affected countries were mixed to say the least, the UK today gets to benefit from literal billions of people having some connection back to the country. It doesn't matter that British food is interesting, because you can choose from like 10 different international cuisines on every high street. I love how the British are able to so readily embrace other international cultures while still being in touch with their own history. Unlike in America, where no matter where you go, a lot of places feel soulless and samey, every British city I went to felt completely different from the last, with beautiful nature actually separating the cities from each other, allowing them to maintain their distinct identities. Which reminds me, Great Britain is absolutely beautiful, Scotland especially so. From the seaside vistas of Brighton, to the royal parks in London, to the coastal cliffs of northern England, to just everything about Edinburgh. The free botanical garden, the steep streets leading down to the water, the highlands visible in the distance, and the giant ancient volcano just casually adjacent to the city center. It really is something else. The best word I can think of to describe the British landscape overall is cultivated. Every bit of the English countryside looks like a romantic painting, but I guess that's just what happens when you have a place that slowly and sustainably develops over the course of centuries. I think it says a lot that this was not a nature trip, but I consistently found myself wandering in some of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in my life. The UK just has an accessibility to high quality nature that is lost in America's urban sprawl and China's concrete megacities. In America, we seem to try and impose ourselves on the landscape, whereas I feel like in the UK, they have learned to live in harmony with it. And it is clear between the investments in renewable energy, the greenbelts present nationwide, and the plethora of environmentally friendly policies that the UK plans to preserve its beautiful landscape for generations to come. In all of these things, the old livable cities, the strong social safety net, the efficient transportation network, the general societal safety, the diversity from all around the world, and the beautifully preserved landscapes all coalesce to create a country that, while far from perfect, gets all the most basic things right and provides the perfect bedrock for a place that is just fun to exist outside in. I mean, there's obviously the expensive stuff, but beyond that, there's the amazing economical and often free third spaces that every Brit has access to. The public leisure centers, the pedestrianized high streets, the cute community cafes and bookstores, the open and inviting parks, and the free museums and cultural institutions. So overall, I had an amazing time just vibing in the UK, and I think that while the country may not be very economically wealthy right now, I think Great Britain is wealthy in the places that truly matter. None of this video is to excuse the very real economic uncertainty and turbulence plaguing the country, but I think all the social media doom posting combined with British culture being generally inclined towards pessimism has created an overly potent cocktail of depression. The truth is that, like natural disasters, economic crises happen. The UK has had a recession every decade since 1950-1, so you can't let your life enjoyment be determined by whatever the fuck the world economy is doing that year. You just can't, especially in a place as nice as the UK. So if you're a Brit and you think Britain is broken, I challenge you to go out and not let some arrogant, overly optimistic 18-year-old American have more fun in your own country than you do. It's probably not as hard as you think.